Over the last few months, we've discovered some inexcusable misconduct at some VA healthcare facilities. Stories of our veterans denied the care they needed, long wait times being covered up, cooking the books. This is wrong.
Wrong. Outrageous. He was indignant. Various government officials swore the facility would improve. The question is, did it improve?
This report from the U.S. Office of Special Counsel confirms that it says on average you'll find 1,100 patients still waiting too long to see a doctor.
The Veterans Administration is looking into allegations that over a 7-year period, the Van Zant VA Medical Center failed to follow up with hundreds of head injury patients hurt fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan.
They don't give a damn, period.
Department of Veterans Affairs Mission Statement: to fulfill President Lincoln's promise to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, by serving and honoring the men and women who are America's veterans. With that mission statement still in your mind, I want us to take a look at the Altoona VA Hospital. The Altoona VA Hospital redefines the meaning of corruption. From acts such as refusing to see patients, retaliating against whistleblowers, and illegally tampering medical records, the Altoona VA has been an absolute disaster and has been hurting our veterans. Fortunately, there are whistleblowers who are willing to stand up against the corruption of the government and risk everything to protect the veterans.
James D'Onofrio, the administrative officer for Van Zant's physical rehab department, says in 2014, he, his department supervisor, and the hospital's chief of staff were contacted by the chief medical officer at the Pittsburgh VA Medical Center. He told them to find out why a majority of brain injury patients at Altoona weren't getting case management and follow-up. D'Onofrio says the investigation showed that between 2007 and 2013, more than 400 patients listed as being under treatment hadn't received necessary follow-up. Actually, 6 on the list were dead, and 1 was serving a life sentence for murder. D'Onofrio says the hospital reportedly cleared up the backlog, but a second review that year showed 90 brain injury patients who weren't being followed, and it included the previous 6 patients who had died and 1 who'd committed suicide.
The exposure of the Altoona VA's corruption did not stop there. Whistleblowers James D'Onofrio and Timothy Scarata both exposed a situation in which a doctor, seeming to be cognitively impaired, continued to treat patients. They cite instances in which the doctor conducted testicular examinations in front of female employees, unnecessarily delayed pain treatment for a suffering and dying patient, and treated patients in the hallway. Rather than listening to the whistleblowers' concerns, the administration subjugated D'Onofrio and Scarata to repetitive investigations, removed them from committees, and D'Onofrio, a veteran himself, had his medical records tampered. After conducting an extensive amount of research, it became shockingly clear that retaliation efforts against whistleblowers are not singular to one VA hospital.
Fraud and abuse, that's what a whistleblower says she saw firsthand at the Bay Pines VA hospital.
As ABC Action News investigator Adam Walzer discovered, instead of taking action against the reported wrongdoing, she says she faced retaliation.
The harassment I've experienced at the HEC from top levels of management include: my whistleblower complaint to White House Deputy Chief of Staff Rob Neighbors was leaked to my manager, Sherry Williams. My employment records were illegally altered by CBO Workforce Management Director Joyce Dieters. Unfortunately, my experience is not unique at VA. Darren and Eileen Owens, who work at the Atlanta VA Medical Center, have experienced the same retaliation for reporting medical errors and patient neglect, as well as misconduct by senior VA police officials.
If we were to investigate the VA at this very moment, the first thing we would look for is patterns, and the patterns we see in this scenario is whistleblower retaliation. Where is it coming from? To best answer that question, let's go back to Altoona. Anytime there was a scandal in the Altoona VA, the acting director would be moved somewhere else and a new one would be brought in. Here's where the patterns begin to come into play. Across the nation, at VA hospitals, when scandals are brought up, the directors will be shuffled and placed into different hospitals to avoid any exposure. Top-level VA administrators are treating directors like a deck of cards, constantly shuffling them anytime a scandal or whistleblower case gets brought up. This tactic of scrambling directors across a plethora of different hospitals allows investigators to get wrapped up, news reporters to become confused, and ultimately, the whistleblower claims are forgotten. At the Altoona VA, Director Mills was moved to the Memphis VA after claims of corruption were brought up against him. Shortly after being sent to Memphis, Director Mills is replaced by Director Wood, who is then replaced by Director Belmont. In the midst of the shuffling of VA directors, the Altoona VA dramatically declined in prestige, and the Memphis VA is ranked as one of the worst VA hospitals in the nation. So why are politicians consistently failing to take action? And how is this negatively impacting the over 20 million veterans in the United States? To find out, stay tuned for part 2.